us and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Middle East. Gaza's Health Ministry has issued a statement saying that the death toll in Gaza has climbed up to 226 people in the recent Israeli strikes that have been conducted in the period of ceasefire. Israel has continuously struck Gaza over the last 4 days. During the strikes, almost 600 people have sustained injuries. This comes as Israel returned to the Gaza Strip the bodies of another 13 Palestinians. Overall, within the framework of the ceasefire agreement, 225 bodies have been returned to the Palestinian sides with the assistance of the International Committee of the Red Cross so far. Meanwhile, the mediators are pondering on the second phase of the Gaza peace deal, which includes talks on the deployment of an international stabilization force and the disarmament of Hamas. However, both Israel and Gaza continue to exchange slain bodies. The peace deal still holds fragile, but despite the fragility of this situation. Now we welcome Peter Baum. He's a foreign editor at Weekly Blitz, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Peter, for joining us again. Good to see you. Peter, what do you think is happening with the phase 1 of ceasefire? And again, the same question of, do you think the talks for the phase 2 should continue?
Good afternoon to you, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being on here again.
Thank you.
Yes, the story that you referred to about the 226 deaths in Gaza came out on Friday through the Hamas propaganda machine. The Gaza Health Ministry was fed to Al Jazeera, and then that was fed to Al Jazeera's chosen Israeli outlet, the very anti-Netanyahu left-wing paper Haaretz. And it's actually become a non-story, because most analysts now who are looking at the output from the Gaza Health Ministry are taking these figures not very seriously, and in the event of no other news, they may quote the Gaza Health Ministry. One of my colleagues working for a French newspaper called Al Jazeera and said, did that number include the number of Palestinians executed by Hamas? And the phone was promptly slammed down on him. So the ceasefire, despite the number of deaths that the Gaza Health Ministry quoted, does seem to be holding, despite the various sporadic upticks, and we saw quite a serious one at the end of last week. So it looks as if this ceasefire, albeit with some rocks along the way, let's say, is by and large holding up, and hopefully it will continue. Though I must say this, Hamas recognizes that in order to retain some kind of credibility and control, either militarily or politically, Hamas needs to come up with a spectacular act of violence in order to keep the appearance of being a relevant player in the peace process. Most, if not all, of her former backers are trying to isolate her. Iran is completely out of the picture now, and Turkey and Qatar and Egypt seem to be going the Trump route in saying, look, there's going to be no room for Hamas in Gaza's reconstruction whilst Hamas retains a military presence. So I know it's a long way of answering your question, but in Gaza it sometimes takes a lot of explanation and thinking about an analysis.
Yes.
But I do think the ceasefire is holding up, albeit Hamas will try to disrupt it.
And thank you, Peter, for sharing that. Peter, do you know any reports of how many people have been killed by Hamas? As we know, and also you mentioned that these numbers did not include people who were killed by Hamas. And also, as talks on the deployment of international stabilization force continues, who do you think will be participating in this so far, and what will their motive be?
Okay, it's very unclear how many Palestinians have been killed by Hamas. Very unclear. We've seen pictures, video clips I should say, of at least 30 executions in the last few days, but prior to that there are a number of other executions as people tried to protest excuse me, against Hamas. Hamas are a totalitarian, theocratic regime that rules with an iron fist, and the Palestinians are very scared to offend them. The only Palestinians that do seem to be fighting against them seem to be the family clans, and those are being supported, obviously, by Israel and possibly the United States. But in terms of how many Palestinians have actually been killed by Hamas, I'd put it to you this way. I believe that thousands of Palestinians have been killed as a result of the Hamas actions by using those poor people as human shields. Now, to answer your second question about the peacekeeping force, I tell you who won't be in it as far as Israel is concerned. Turkey, a major player in the peace process, it would be a red line for Israel to have Turkish forces in Gaza. But I do think that Egypt would have a role to play in here, and maybe some force of the combined Arab Gulf states. So perhaps the Emiratis, Qatar even could play a role, maybe even Oman. But as far as the United Nations are concerned, there are certain countries, again, that Israel will have no truck with because of a previous experience. She wouldn't want, for example, the useless Irish troops who formed the UNIFIL brigade. Because of the poor relationship with Spain and Norway, Israel probably wouldn't want Spanish or Norwegian troops, but she would be very trustworthy of troops from the United States and some countries in South America, such as Panama, Argentina, Paraguay, for example. So the makeup has yet to be determined, but it's clear from the Israeli side the countries that she would not want to fill that gap as being a peacekeeping force. And I think to answer your third question, if you like, what would be the role of the peacekeepers? It would be simply that. It would be certainly to help in the reconstruction, but to keep the militant factions away from the Israeli border, as UNIFIL tried but so spectacularly failed to do when UNIFIL was on the Lebanese-Israeli border.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for remembering all my 3 questions and answering them in order and giving us that insight. Thank you very much. That was Peter Baum. He's a foreign editor at Weekly Blitz, joined us live from London. Now we stay in the region. Prince Andrew is under fire for allegedly using his royal